not your nail polish, not whether they need trimming. Look closely at the actual nails. Run the thumb of your other hand slowly across the surface. Do they feel smooth or can you feel ridges? Now hold both hands next to each other under good light. Look at the color. Look at the shape. Look at the skin around the nails. And now ask yourself one question. Have your nails always looked this way, or have they gradually changed over the last few years? Because after 60, changes in your nails are often dismissed with 4 simple words. That's just aging. Sometimes it is. But sometimes a new or unusual nail change is a clue that deserves a closer look. And that's what I want to talk about today. There are 4 medical conditions that can sometimes be associated with noticeable changes in the nails, including nutritional deficiencies, thyroid problems, circulation or metabolic problems, and certain systemic illnesses. None of these nail changes can diagnose a disease by themselves, and I want to make that extremely clear from the beginning. But when a nail change appears together with other symptoms, it can become a reason to ask a much better question. Not, why do my nails look old, but what else has changed in my body at the same time? And stay with me until the 4th one, because it involves a nail change that many people notice but rarely know how to interpret. More importantly, I'm going to show you exactly what you should look for, what you should not panic about, and when a change is worth mentioning to your doctor. Before we get into the first one, take another look at your hands. If you're over 60, tell me your age in the comments. And if you've noticed a change in your nails during the last year, tell me what changed. The color, the thickness, the shape, the ridges, or the texture. Because the interesting thing about nails is that they grow slowly. That means your nails can sometimes preserve evidence of something that happened inside your body weeks or months earlier. Your fingernail is produced by a structure called the nail matrix, located underneath the skin at the base of the nail. New nail cells are continuously produced there, and as they grow, they push older nail material forward. That's why a disruption in nail growth can sometimes leave a visible mark. Think of the nail almost like a timeline. A temporary interruption in growth can leave a horizontal groove. A nutritional problem can affect nail strength and appearance. Changes in circulation can alter the color or growth of the nail, and certain medical conditions can produce characteristic patterns. But here's the part that is extremely important. Your nails are not a diagnostic test. You cannot look at a ridge and conclude that you have a disease. You cannot look at a pale nail and diagnose anemia. And you should never start medication or supplements simply because you saw something in a YouTube video. What your nails can do is give you a reason to pay attention. And after 60, paying attention to small changes can be incredibly valuable. So let's start with the first pattern. Look at your nails from the side. Are they gently curved? Or has one or more nails started becoming unusually thin, flat, fragile, or even concave in the center? If the nail curves inward and resembles a tiny spoon, that's called koilonychia, or spoon nails. And this is one of the classic nail changes associated with iron deficiency. Now, if you've never seen spoon nails before, you may not even recognize them. A normal fingernail generally has a gentle convex curve. A spoon nail can become flatter, and in more pronounced cases, the edges may turn upward while the center dips downward. But there's something even more important than the appearance of the nail. Ask yourself why it changed. Because iron deficiency isn't simply about feeling tired. Iron is involved in oxygen transport and many processes throughout the body. And when iron deficiency becomes significant, a person can experience fatigue, weakness, reduced exercise tolerance, headaches, difficulty concentrating, and other symptoms. And in someone over 60, there's another reason iron deficiency deserves attention. Sometimes the issue isn't simply that the person isn't eating enough iron. Sometimes there is a reason the body is losing iron or failing to absorb it properly. And that's why unexplained iron deficiency in an older adult should be evaluated rather than automatically treated with supplements without knowing the cause. Imagine a 68-year-old woman who gradually notices that her fingernails have become thinner. At first, she ignores it. Then she begins feeling tired when walking up the stairs. She starts taking afternoon naps. She finds herself getting mentally exhausted more easily. Her family tells her that she's simply slowing down with age. She thinks the same thing. But eventually, she mentions the fatigue during a medical appointment. A blood test shows anemia and additional testing points toward iron deficiency. The important lesson isn't that her nails diagnosed the problem. They didn't. The lesson is that the nail change appeared alongside other symptoms that deserved investigation. That's the distinction I want you to remember throughout this entire video. A nail sign by itself is rarely enough. A nail sign plus a meaningful change in your health is a different situation. So if you notice spoon-shaped nails together with persistent fatigue, weakness, pale skin, shortness of breath with ordinary activity, dizziness, or other concerning symptoms, talk with your healthcare professional. They may consider tests such as a complete blood count and iron studies, depending on your situation. And please don't assume that taking an iron supplement automatically solves the problem. In older adults, unexplained iron deficiency may require finding out why the iron is low in the first place. Now let's move to the second nail pattern. This one looks completely different. Instead of looking at the shape of the nail, look across it. Do you see a groove running horizontally from one side of the nail to the other? Almost like someone pressed a line into the nail while it was still soft. These are commonly called Bow's lines. And the fascinating thing about Bow's lines is that they're essentially a record of an interruption in nail growth. The nail matrix temporarily slows down or stops producing normal nail material. Then growth resumes, and the result is a visible horizontal depression. This can happen after a significant illness, high fever, major physical stress, surgery, severe infection, or other events that temporarily disrupt normal nail growth. So if you had a serious illness several months ago, and now notice a horizontal groove moving outward as the nail grows, that may simply represent the body's response to that earlier event. But here's where you should pay attention. What if the grooves keep appearing? What if several nails are affected? What if you don't remember having a major illness that would explain them? That's when it's worth discussing the pattern with a healthcare professional, rather than assuming it's just something cosmetic. And there is another reason this matters. A nail is slow growing, so the location of a groove can sometimes give an approximate indication of when the disruption happened. It's almost like looking at a tree ring, except much less precise. The farther the groove has moved from the base toward the fingertip, the older the event generally is. This is why taking a photograph can actually be useful. You may look at your nails today and think, they've always looked like that. But take a clear photograph, then compare it several months later. Gradual changes are surprisingly difficult to remember. Now imagine a man in his early 70s who notices horizontal grooves appearing across several fingernails. He remembers having a severe infection months earlier, so initially he isn't concerned. But over the next year, similar grooves appear again. He has also developed increasing fatigue and swelling in his legs. He assumes the nails are unrelated. During an appointment, his doctor looks at the broader picture and orders blood tests. The nail grooves didn't diagnose his problem. His other symptoms and examination led to the investigation. And that's the larger lesson here. Sometimes the most useful medical clue isn't one dramatic symptom. It's the combination of several small changes that don't seem connected until someone puts them together. So if you see repeated horizontal grooves, especially across multiple nails, don't immediately assume the worst. Ask yourself, did I recently have a major illness, a high fever, an operation, a serious infection, a period of severe physical stress? If yes, there may be a straightforward explanation. If not, or if the grooves keep recurring, mention them at your next appointment. Now let's talk about something that many people immediately assume is a fungal infection: thickened, discolored nails, especially toenails. You may have seen this yourself. A toenail becomes thicker. The color changes. It becomes yellowish or whitish. It grows more slowly. Maybe it becomes difficult to trim. And the obvious conclusion is, it's fungus. Sometimes it is. Fungal nail infection is common. But not every thick or discolored nail is fungal. Trauma, psoriasis, aging-related changes, circulation problems, and other conditions can alter nail appearance. And this becomes particularly interesting when nail changes occur together with changes in sensation. Imagine that your toenails have become thick and yellow, but at the same time your feet feel different. Maybe you notice tingling. Maybe there's burning. Maybe your feet sometimes feel numb. Maybe you step on something and don't feel it as clearly as you used to. Now the question becomes much bigger than your toenails, because changes in sensation in the feet can have many causes, including nerve problems. One important cause is diabetes. Persistently elevated blood glucose can damage nerves and blood vessels over time. Diabetic peripheral neuropathy commonly affects the feet and may produce burning, tingling, numbness, pain, or reduced sensation. And the dangerous part is that neuropathy can develop gradually. There may be no dramatic moment when you suddenly realize something is wrong. Instead, you might notice small things. Your feet feel different. Your balance isn't quite the same. You don't notice minor injuries. Your shoes feel strange. You develop burning sensations at night. And you may simply think, well, I'm over 60. But age itself should not be used to explain away every new symptom. Here's an important distinction. A thick yellow toenail does not mean you have diabetes. And numb feet do not automatically mean diabetes either. There are many possible explanations. But if you have persistent nail changes together with new or worsening numbness, tingling, burning, unusual thirst, frequent urination, unexplained fatigue, or other concerning symptoms, that's a good reason to talk with your doctor. Depending on your situation, they may consider checking blood glucose or an HbA1c test, which provides an estimate of average blood glucose over the preceding several months. And if nerve symptoms are present, they may evaluate sensation, reflexes, circulation, and other possible causes. This is where I want you to notice the strategy behind all 4 signs. We're not saying nail change equals disease. We're saying nail change plus the right cluster of symptoms deserves attention. That is a much safer and more useful way to think about your body. Now let's go to number 3. And this one can be particularly confusing because the change may happen so gradually that you don't notice it until someone else points it out. Look at the overall texture of your nails. Are they becoming unusually dry? Do they split easily? Do they seem brittle? Do you have horizontal grooves? And at the same time, have you noticed changes in your energy, body weight, sensitivity to cold, skin dryness, constipation, mood, or mental sharpness? Because sometimes nail changes can occur alongside problems involving the thyroid. Your thyroid is a small gland in the front of your neck, but the hormones it produces influence many systems throughout the body. When thyroid hormone levels are too low, people may experience symptoms such as fatigue, feeling unusually cold, dry skin, constipation, slowed heart rate, changes in weight, and difficulty with concentration. Not everyone experiences the same symptoms, and many of these symptoms are extremely easy to blame on aging. That's what makes thyroid problems so easy to overlook. A person says, "I've been tired lately." Someone responds, "You're getting older." They say, "My skin is dry, that's aging. My digestion has slowed down, that's normal after 60. My thinking feels slower. You've just been stressed." Each individual symptom can have many explanations. But when several appear together, it's worth looking at the bigger picture. Imagine a 72-year-old man who notices that he's become increasingly tired over the past year. He gets cold when everyone else feels comfortable. His skin is drier. His bowel movements have become less frequent. His nails have become brittle. And his family notices that he's simply not as energetic as he used to be. He assumes it's aging. Eventually, he mentions the symptoms to his doctor. A thyroid evaluation helps identify an underactive thyroid. Again, the nails didn't make the diagnosis. The nail change was simply one more piece of information. And that's exactly how you should use these signs. As information, not as a diagnosis. If you're noticing several new symptoms at once, especially if they've developed gradually, write them down. Don't rely on memory during a 10-minute appointment. Write, when did this start? What changed first? What has gotten worse? Which symptoms appeared together? Then show the list to your healthcare professional. That simple habit can make a medical conversation much more productive. Now we're coming to the 4th and final pattern. And I want you to look very closely because this is one of those changes people can see without realizing that it may be worth mentioning. Look at the color of your nails. More specifically, look at the skin underneath the nail. In normal circumstances, the nail bed often has a pinkish appearance, although natural coloration varies between individuals and can change with temperature and circulation. But if multiple nail beds appear noticeably pale, especially together with fatigue, weakness, dizziness, shortness of breath, or other symptoms, anemia becomes one of the possibilities doctors may consider. And this brings us back to something we discussed earlier, iron deficiency. But there's another nutritional issue that deserves attention in older adults. Vitamin B abilities doctors may consider. And this brings us back to something we discussed earlier, iron deficiency. But there's another nutritional issue that deserves attention in older adults. Vitamin B12. B12 is essential for normal blood cell formation and neurological function. When B12 deficiency develops, a person may experience fatigue and anemia, but neurological symptoms can also occur. These can include tingling or numbness, balance difficulties, weakness, and changes in cognitive function. And here's why this matters. Neurological problems related to B12 deficiency can sometimes develop gradually. A person might not wake up one morning and suddenly think, I have a vitamin deficiency. Instead, they may notice that their feet feel strange. Then their balance isn't quite as good. Then their hands begin tingling. Then they feel mentally foggy. And because these changes happen slowly, they may be attributed to aging. But aging should not automatically be blamed for new neurological symptoms. B12 deficiency has many possible causes. Some people don't consume enough B12. Others may have problems absorbing it. Certain gastrointestinal conditions and some medications can interfere with B12 absorption. That's why the appropriate evaluation depends on the individual. And if you have persistent numbness, tingling, balance problems, weakness, or cognitive changes, don't try to diagnose the cause by looking at your nails. Talk with a healthcare professional. A clinician may decide to check a blood count and B12 status, and in some situations, additional tests can help clarify whether a deficiency is present. Now I want you to pause for a second, because we've covered 4 different patterns: spoon-shaped nails, horizontal grooves, thickened or discolored nails, particularly when accompanied by neurological symptoms, and noticeable changes in nail color or appearance occurring alongside symptoms that could point toward anemia or nutritional problems. But there is something much more important than memorizing these 4 signs. It's knowing what to do next. So let's make this extremely simple. Go somewhere with good natural light. Put both hands next to each other. Look at every fingernail. Don't obsess over tiny imperfections. You're looking for changes. Is one nail dramatically different from the others? Are several nails changing in the same way? Are there deep horizontal grooves? Is the nail unusually thin or concave? Has the color changed significantly? Has the nail become unusually thick or brittle? Now think about your health at the same time. Have you developed unusual fatigue, numbness, tingling, burning in your hands or feet, balance problems, unexplained weight changes, persistent constipation, feeling unusually cold, shortness of breath, dizziness, changes in your memory or concentration? Don't assume that every combination means something serious, but don't automatically dismiss it either. And there's one more thing I want you to do. Take a clear photograph. Both hands. Good lighting. Fingers spread. No filters. Date the photograph. Then keep it, because your memory is not a perfect medical record. A photograph can show you whether something is actually changing. And if you notice a persistent or progressive change, bring the photograph to your appointment. You can say, I've noticed this change over the last 6 months. Here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. That is much more useful than simply saying, my nails look weird. Now, there are also situations where you shouldn't wait for a routine appointment. If you develop a sudden major change in a nail, severe pain, significant swelling, pus or signs of infection, a dark streak that is new or changing, bleeding without an obvious injury, or a rapidly changing lesion around or underneath a nail, seek medical evaluation promptly. And if you're experiencing sudden weakness, difficulty speaking, facial drooping, severe new confusion, or sudden loss of coordination, that's not a nail problem. That's an emergency. Don't wait and don't try to diagnose it yourself. But for gradual nail changes, the message is much calmer. Observe, document, look at the bigger picture, and discuss persistent changes with a qualified healthcare professional. Because here's the biggest mistake I don't want you to make after watching this video. Don't start examining your nails and suddenly convince yourself that you have 4 diseases. That's not what this information is for. A vertical ridge can be completely harmless. A horizontal groove can simply reflect an illness you had months ago. A yellow toenail may be fungal. Dry nails may have a simple explanation. Pale nails may look different because of lighting or circulation. The human body is complicated. That's why diagnosis requires context. Your age, your medications, your medical history, your symptoms, your examination, and, when appropriate, laboratory testing or other investigations. The value of learning these signs isn't that you can replace your doctor. It's that you can become a better observer of your own health. And that's particularly important after 60, because one of the most dangerous habits we can develop as we age is assuming that every new symptom is simply aging. Some changes are normal, some aren't. And the only way to know the difference is to pay attention. So tonight, take another look at your hands, not with fear, with curiosity. Ask yourself, have these nails always looked this way, or is this something new? Then ask an even more important question. What else in my body has changed at the same time? Maybe nothing. And that's perfectly fine. Maybe you've had the same nail ridges for 20 years, and they're simply part of you. Maybe that thick toenail really is a fungal infection. Maybe the horizontal groove is a reminder of a serious illness you had months ago. But if you discover a new change accompanied by symptoms you've been quietly dismissing, that's the moment when observation becomes action. And sometimes, that conversation can uncover something treatable. Not because your fingernails magically diagnosed you, but because you noticed, you paid attention, and you gave your doctor another piece of the puzzle. So if you're over 60, I want you to remember one simple rule from today's video. Don't diagnose your disease from your nails, but don't ignore meaningful changes either. Your nails are not a crystal ball. They're not a substitute for blood tests. They're not a replacement for a medical examination, but they are part of your body. And when something changes persistently, your body may be giving you a reason to look closer. If you found a nail change while watching this video, tell me in the comments which one you noticed. Ridges, grooves, thickness, color, brittleness, or a change in shape. And if you know someone over 60 who tends to say, that's just part of getting older, send them this video. Because sometimes the most important health conversation begins with something as ordinary as looking down at your own hands. And remember, if a nail change is new, worsening, unexplained, or accompanied by symptoms such as numbness, weakness, persistent fatigue, balance problems, unexplained weight change, or other concerning changes in your health, make an appointment with your healthcare professional. Don't panic. Don't self-diagnose. Just get it checked. Because after 60, being proactive isn't about being afraid of every symptom. It's about refusing to ignore the symptoms that deserve attention. And that small difference can make a very big difference in your health. If this video helped you understand what to look for, subscribe to the channel, because in the next video we're going to look at another everyday body change that many people over 60 dismiss as normal, and why